Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I hope that you are very well. It is very warm in my flat today, so the window is open but there are builders outside, so apologies if you can hear that. And today I'm bringing you my July wrap up. This is my third wrap up video in a row. Hopefully this will end the streak, because I'm hoping to do another video before the end of August. But it's a lot more books. As always, I've ranked them all from my least favourite to my favourite. And this was a really great reading month. I sort of, looking back at it, I think at the time I was very busy. I've talked about it a bazillion times. I was moving house. And looking back now, you know, it's a very busy time. I read so many great books. I had a couple of 3 stars, but a couple of 4 stars, and loads of 5 stars. So it was a great reading month. So without any further ado, let's get into the books I read in July. Okay, so starting off, my least favourite book I read in July was actually an audiobook, and it was The Principles of Philosophy by Michael Moore. This is the second non-fiction philosophy audiobook I've listened to, complete coincidence, in the last couple of months. And I had broadly the same criticism of them both, which is that it was very Eurocentric. And I would have liked to see more about other cultures and other non-European ideas of philosophy, especially when this book is talking about language and religion and how they intersect with philosophy, yet it was all about Europe. If you're gonna write a book about European philosophy, put it in the title. Anyway, there was some interesting stuff in here though. I did learn a lot. I don't think this book is suited to an audiobook format, which puzzles me because the audiobook has been released first, and then it's going to be a kind of hardback infographic style book in November, which is a very long time away. So that just all confused me a bit. Yeah, it didn't really work as an audiobook because there were so many tables and graphs and other stuff that just got read out verbatim. Yeah, I think a PDF of accompanying materials would have gone a long way. The other 3-star book that I read in July was Unladylike Lessons in Love by Amita Murray. And of course I was going to pick this up when I had the opportunity to, because it's Regency, it's romance, and it's historically accurate diversity, which we love to see it. Love it. I will say, I think this book, so in theory it's a Regency romance. The romance was my least favourite part of this book, which is why I got 3 stars. I didn't really feel any tension between the 2 main characters. They kind of got together very early on with no sort of emotional stakes after that. So it didn't really have that like will they, won't they, or any of that sort of drive and drama that you want from a romance book. But there was a nice mystery aspect to it, and what I thought this book did really well is it was a really good sort of depiction of what life would have actually been like to be a mixed race woman growing up in Regency Britain, the troubles she would have faced, the way that she kind of is half in society, half isn't, how she can use that to her advantage, how it disadvantages her. I thought that was really well done. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see what else this author writes. I know this is the first of a series. So given that the characters in this one were what let it down, maybe the next one with different characters will change my mind, who knows. We are already into the 4-star books. So the first 4-star book on my list is Reflections on the Boulevard by L.J. Ambrosio. This is the sequel to The Reservoir Man, and I had kind of the same feelings about this as I did about The Reservoir Man. Both were very character-driven, emotional stories that followed the characters exploring these big ideas of life and mortality and love and family. And this one especially, this one is an intergenerational friendship and found family. and a road trip as well. So yes, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The writing style is very distinctive for these two books. I think the author, I think he came up during doing sort of screenplays rather than prose, and that really comes across in the book. It's very dialogue heavy, which is a bit of an adjustment at the start, that the kind of narrative is just sort of and then loads of dialogue, but quite quickly you get sort of into it and swept up in the story. Next up on the 4-star books is Father of One by Yanni and Tola, and this is about a soldier during the Bosnian War, and it kind of flips perspectives. It's mostly his perspective, but also his wife's perspective. She is a refugee living in Germany, sort of trying to find out where he is and getting information from him, trying to be reunited with him. This was a really moving story, very kind of immersive and vivid depictions of the Bosnian War, and I knew nothing about the Bosnian War going into this book, which is very shocking given that I have lived in Europe my whole life and the Bosnian War ended about the time I was born, so I should know about it. So yes, it was a part of history I didn't really know much about. It was really interesting to read. Again, very character driven, really emotional story, and yes, this was another one you could just get stuck into. I don't know what they're doing outside, it's making very strange noises. So my top 4-star book for July, which I was on the fence as to whether this was a 4 or 5 star, I decided it just about landed in the 4 side, and that was Black Sails to Sunward by Sheila Janae. 3 words: sapphic space pirates. What else could you want? This world was so brilliantly created. It was so well thought out. There were so many layers to it. The way the class system worked in this world was really interesting, kind of based off sort of landed gentry, sort of traditional English class system, but in a space pirate way. I loved the aesthetic of it. I just had the best time. It was just an adventure from start to finish. I had the best time. And now we're into one of the biggest 5-star zones that we have had. And first up is an audiobook, and it is A Safe Girl to Love by Casey Plett. The audiobook was read by the author, which I really enjoyed. She could kind of tease out the characters and themes that she wanted to, which I really liked. And this is a short story collection, and each story is about a different transgender woman. That's the kind of main thing that ties them all together. They pretty much all take place in the same world. Some characters crop up in other stories. There was so much variety here though, and I really, really loved that, especially for an audiobook short story collection. Having that variety just makes it such a great listen and kind of helps you to distinguish the different stories in your head. Some of them were incredibly tragic, some of them were incredibly joyful, some of them were just downright weird. Most of them were prose, some of them were sort of like a listicle or shopping list kind of style of writing. It was just really great. I really, really enjoyed it. Something a bit different, and yeah, I'm keen to see what else she's written and kind of read some of her other books. Okay, next up on the 5 stars is Finding Phoebe by Gavin Extence. And I really, really enjoyed this book. It took me a little while to get into it, but once I got into it, I was stuck, I was absorbed, I needed to know what happened. Phoebe is, I think she's 15 years old at the start of this book. She is autistic. She lives on Lindisfarne, which is an island that you can only access at low tide. And she is a teenager. She has her own plan for what she's going to do this year, and things get slightly derailed when her best friend starts a secret relationship and she is sort of pulled in to be their cover. And it was just a beautiful coming of age story about these 2 friends, both of them in their own way kind of finding their place and what they want to do and what's important to them and uncovering family secrets. It was a really, really great read. And I highly, highly recommend it. And I can't speak personally, I think this was really great representation of an autistic teenage girl. It wasn't the biggest part of her life, but of course it was part of her life and how she thinks and how she sees the world. And it wasn't a negative or a positive, it just changed how she saw the world. And I really thought that was a great way to depict neurodivergence. I listened to a lot of audiobooks in July. So the next one is another audiobook, and that is Broken Hearts and Zombie Parts by William Hussey. I loved this book so much. It was so sweet. It was so wholesome. It was just like joy, but also I just felt so much for these characters. The main character is Jesse. I think he's in year 12 at school, so he's kind of 16, 17, and he finds out that he needs to have open heart surgery. So he decides he's got two things he wants to do before he has the surgery. He wants to make the zombie film of his dreams, and he also wants to find a boyfriend because he's worried that the scar left by the surgery will mean that no one will want him. So we have this incredibly sweet story about friendships and accomplishing your dreams and growing up, and also really, really good discussion of body image and how it affects people differently, and especially within the gay community, as specifically gay men, but also how it affects teenage girls' body image. And yeah, it was just a really, really great book. It was laugh out loud funny. It's one of the books that really works well as an audiobook because you can just chuckle along while you're listening. Some of the situations the characters got themselves into were hilarious. I loved it so much. And there was a little bit, no, that's spoilers, I'm not going to say that, but you should read it. Next up is Galatea by the incredible Madeline Miller. It is no secret that I love everything she writes, and I have read this years ago. It was originally published as part of a short story collection, and I think I asked for it for my birthday or for Christmas, just so I could read this book, because at the time the Song of Achilles was out, and it, Circe hadn't even been announced, let alone released, and I was desperate for more Madeline Miller. And I read it at the time and I was like, it's fine. And then I listened to the audiobook this month, and oh my goodness, it's amazing. It's a very short audiobook. It was less than an hour long, because it is a short story. And this is a kind of a half retelling of the tale of, I want to say Pygmalion, I may be wrong. And it was kind of Handmaid's Tale like, and she did say in the author's note that it was inspired in part by late 20th century feminist fiction, and that is definitely there. The whole story is really about the male view, and the male gaze, and how some men want women to be perfect in this way and that way and that way. Basically, it was the Barbie movie, but Greek mythology. Now that I'm thinking about it, but it's really, really great. So good. These last two were very highly anticipated releases for me. So, first up, Trouble by Lex Croucher. I loved Reputation and Infamous. I think this one might be my favourite. It was so good. So this is another Regency book, another Regency romance, and Emily is a reluctant governess. She does not want to be a governess, but her sister used to be a governess and got this job, but then became too ill to take the position. They couldn't afford to lose the job, so she was like, I will pretend to be you, and I will go work for this sort of semi-retired naval captain and his two children and his found family of servants. And I loved it so much. It was the most reluctant romance. She did not want to fall in love. She did not want to be with him. She made that very, very clear. She was like, I'm not interested, but also we're going to make out now. And it was just really, really great. Really, really great. There was also really good wider queer representation. And just, I loved it so much. So much. Which brings us to my favourite book that I read in July. Now this is not a Regency book, but it is based on a Regency book. It is North Ranger by, I'm going to try and get these right, Ray Terciago and Bray Indigo. It's a graphic novel, it's based on Northanger Abbey, and it was brilliant. It was just truly, truly brilliant. So it's set in modern day Texas, and the main character, Cade, he is a reluctant farmhand. He's made to go and work on a farm with his stepdad over the summer, where he meets, I'm forgetting their names, he meets the very handsome Henry, of course it's Henry, I should know that, who's the son of the farmer. And the way that they adapted Northanger Abbey for this book was just brilliant. The Gothic novels have been replaced with horror films, and Catherine's kind of paranoia just from reading books and being lost in her own world has turned into Cade's paranoia about being a closeted gay kid in rural Texas. Of course he's paranoid that everyone's out to get him, that his secrets have been leaked, that there's other stuff going on that he doesn't know about. The art style is just really, really great. I loved this book so much, so much. It was just such a brilliant adaptation, and I think kind of almost the gold standard. It reminded me a bit of Clueless in the way that it drew on those themes and made them work perfectly in modern day, and sort of picked out the themes that are still relevant. And it was just great. It was just great. So that is it. Those are my July books. I'm hoping to give you a video that is not a wrap up next week. Let me know in the comments what you read in July. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe. I will see you all next week. Thank you very much for watching. Ta-ra for now.